If this kind of story hits home, share it, drop a like, and subscribe. It helps more than you know. She came through the front door with her bag still hanging off one shoulder and said, "Everything's fine, nothing to discuss." Then she pulled me in, held me the way a doctor steadies a patient before delivering news, and added, "You always do this. Go shower, I'll warm up the pasta." I watched her set her phone face down on the counter. Same motion as the night before, same night before that. Same controlled half-smile she wore whenever she wanted me to stop looking. I'd learned what that smile meant the hard way, that something behind it was being guarded with great care. That was the night I should have asked the question. I didn't. Instead, I stood in the kitchen with a fork dangling from my hand and let it slip back onto the plate without making a sound. If I'd known then where the next few weeks were going to take me, I'd have held that moment a little longer. It was the last evening that felt anything close to ordinary. I let it pass quietly and went to bed. By morning, I was already at the job site, coffee in hand, managing the kind of controlled chaos that makes sense to me: material deliveries, subcontractor schedules, the daily algebra of keeping a commercial remodel on track. The math on site was honest. It added up. What was happening at home had stopped doing that, and I was starting to notice. The shift didn't arrive all at once. It crept in at the edges. My wife, I'll call her Claire, stopped being curious about my day. She started eating earlier, or claimed she'd grabbed something already, then disappeared for long walks she said were for her head. The easy laughter she used to aim at my stupidity, me grabbing the wrong recycling bin, me butchering the neighbor's dog's name, that dried up completely. She became pleasant the way a bank teller is pleasant, efficient, transactional, like I was a client in the final stretch of a contract, and she was just waiting for it to close. 3 weeks of that, and I put my plate in the sink, dried my hands on the towel, and laid it out plainly. I told her, "Let's sit down tonight. If there's someone else, say it, I'll be civil. We'll separate like 2 adults. If that's not it, then we actually fix things, because pretending isn't the same as fixing." Her eyes went sharp. "Someone else?" she repeated, like I'd walked mud across a clean floor. "You think that low of me?" I said it wasn't low thinking, it was pattern recognition. Cold distance, cancelled plans, a phone that always landed face down. She told me I was being disgusting. I told her I was being direct. She called it a paranoia routine. I called it a straight question. She grabbed her keys and said she was going to her friend Melissa's to clear her head. The door clicked shut. The refrigerator hummed. I stood alone in the kitchen, thought about the apology I'd offered her, a genuine one, for the hurt the question caused, not for the question itself, and realized it hadn't done anything to change the numbers. Someone was selling me a very comfortable story and expecting me to stay comfortable inside it. I didn't follow her. I didn't escalate. I did something quieter and more deliberate. I reorganized my own life. No announcements, no scene setting. I simply stopped performing the soft gestures she'd come to expect from me without earning them. The dry cleaning pickups, the vitamin runs, the rescheduled workouts, mi pareja, I'd be home in case she decided she wanted dinner. I put my gym sessions back on the calendar at 5 in the morning. I picked up an extra project at work. I cooked my own meals, left hers on a covered plate if she was out, and otherwise moved through the house like a man with his own itinerary. If she wanted an equal partner, I was still there. If she'd grown used to a concierge, she'd have to adjust. 3 days into that, I noticed something small. The family account we used for shared grocery lists, the kind of app that shows everyone's location by default, had stopped showing Claire's. It used to be there. Now it wasn't. Settings don't update themselves. I mentioned it at breakfast the next morning, casually, like I'd noticed a notification glitch. I said her phone must have dropped off the shared list. She took a sip of coffee and said she must have hit something by accident. She'd fix it. She never did. That was my first real confirmation. Not proof, but something cleaner than suspicion. She was curating what I saw, and she was doing it carefully enough to think I wouldn't notice. Melissa is Claire's oldest friend, HR professional, 2 kids, a husband named Kevin who calls everybody chief at barbecues and always shows up with the wrong number of bags of ice. They live 11 minutes away. We'd done enough of the suburban social loop together that Kevin and I knew each other's beer orders, even if we weren't particularly close. I didn't call Melissa. I didn't plant anything. I started with information. At the office, I caught our IT coordinator, a guy named Sal, carrying a coil of Cat 6 down the hallway. I stopped him, casual, told him my wife's phone had dropped off our family location share. Had he ever seen that glitch before? He gave me a flat look. Only when somebody turns it off, he said. Then he read whatever was on my face and pulled back slightly. He mentioned that vehicle tracking through a car app can sometimes serve as a backup. Not invasive, just a location ping connected to the service account both parties set up. He offered to text me a link to the relevant setting. I thanked him and kept moving. I wasn't interested in surveillance. I was interested in stopping the blindness. That same evening, I set one more rule at the kitchen counter. I told Claire, the undefined dinner routine is over. My schedule is back to what it was. Gym early, job site late, home Fridays by 6, hardware store Saturday mornings. If she wanted time together, she could say when. She looked up from her phone long enough to ask if she now needed an appointment to see her own husband. I told her she just needed to acknowledge that my time had the same value as hers. She rolled her eyes and said she was going for a walk. I told her to take a jacket and went back to the invoices in front of me. 2 days later, she came home late with soup from a place she knew I liked, and she said something that surprised me. She said she'd made a scene of herself the other night and that work had been crushing her, and she forgot how to turn it off at the door. She didn't fully understand what had set off the argument, but she didn't want us fighting. She touched my shoulder and said she was sorry. I let the apology land. I told her I appreciated it. We watched something on television and she tucked her feet under my leg the way she used to, and for about an hour I felt the weight shift. Which was the point of it, I think. She was good at this, really good. The night after that, I enabled what Sal had sent me. Nothing that hadn't already been part of the shared account settings we'd both agreed to when we first set up the family plan. I also opened the car app, the one we both used for service reminders, and turned on the locate ping I'd never had a reason to use before. I'm not a surveillance-minded person by nature. I'm a builder. Builders measure. The patterns showed up fast. Her evening walks touched a stretch of Park 2 neighborhoods south, near the river trail. That part was fine. But the location also stopped moving for 45 minutes near a coffee place that closes at 7. Then it traveled to the far end of a quiet parking lot with poor lighting and no foot traffic. 2 nights after her soup apology, she left the house in a dress I hadn't seen in a while, said Melissa had been having a rough time, said she'd be back by 9. At 8:20, I checked the car's location. It was near that same trail lot, not moving. What happened next wasn't something I planned carefully. I got my jacket, left my house keys in the dish by the door, drove the truck a long route around the neighborhood and parked behind a strip mall 2 blocks from the trail. I walked the rest of the way on foot. There's a particular sound your brain makes when a theory becomes a fact. It's not loud. It doesn't feel like anything you'd expect. It's more like a switch you didn't know was stuck finally clicking into place. I found them on a bench at the far edge of the park, near the tree line. Not touching, but close in the way that means something. The way bodies occupy space differently when they've already crossed a line. Claire's laugh was soft and deliberate, the one she uses when she wants someone to feel witty. Kevin, Melissa's husband, sitting next to my wife in a dark hoodie, his hands moving as he talked. I stood behind a low wall near the path. I raised my work tablet and took 3 photographs. Then I left. I drove home with the radio off. I went to bed. When Claire came in at 10:40, she smelled like cold air and coffee. I asked into the dark if everything was okay. She said Melissa was fine. She thanked me for not being strange about her going out. I said no problem. Then I lay on my back and looked at the ceiling until I had what I needed. At 7 the next morning, I texted Melissa. I kept it short, asked if she could meet for coffee. 10 minutes, I said. It concerns both of us. She replied with a question mark, then a coffee place near the car wash on her street. I got there early. Corner table. She came in with her hair pulled back, no makeup, a shirt that read "Done." She's sharp and unsentimental, which is exactly what the moment required. She sat down without ceremony and asked what was going on. I turned the tablet toward her and let the photograph answer the question. Melissa looked at the image for a long time. She exhaled once through her nose. She didn't fall apart. She didn't look at me. She studied the last photo with the focus of someone reading a document they'll need to cite later. Then she said, "That's my husband, and that's your wife." I confirmed it. She asked how certain I was. Certain enough to have location data spanning multiple nights, I told her. I said I wasn't there to blow up her life in a coffee shop. I was there because if I were in her position, I'd want to be told by the person who had actually bothered to find out. She nodded once. "Thank you," she said, and meant it. We sat in the ambient noise of espresso machines and low conversation. She finally looked up and asked what I planned to do. I told her I was done repeating the same conversation 100 times with someone who'd already made her choice. I'd handle it cleanly. I'd set terms that were fair and I'd hold them. I wouldn't go out of my way to ruin anyone, but I wasn't going to perform happiness either. Something shifted in Melissa's expression, a firmness I'd seen in her once before, when someone at a school event tried to guilt her into volunteering a third consecutive weekend. She said she wasn't staying with a man who used her friendship as a cover while running around behind her back. Clean was fine, but it had to be final. She had a friend who knew the paperwork. I had a financial advisor who owed me a call. We agreed on a timeline. Quiet, no scenes until the moment called for one. We'd gather what we needed and choose our moment deliberately. She stood to leave, hands flat on the table, and asked if she could keep copies of the photos. I told her they were hers. She slid them into her bag. We left the coffee shop separately. Outside, a kid in a soccer jersey was kicking a ball against the curb. The everyday world continued doing what it does. That steadied me more than I expected. And remember, if you're looking for something to take care of yourself the way I was learning to take care of things at home, check the description and the pinned comment. We've got everything from fitness to general health and wellness covered there. That evening I made a simple dinner and set 2 plates on the table. Claire came in with a bright smile, wearing a blouse I hadn't seen since spring, and acted like dinner waiting at home was some marvel she hadn't expected. I reminded her Fridays I'm home by 6. She put her phone down face up on the counter, a small, deliberate performance, and said I was sweet. During the meal, she did the second soft rotation. She said she knew she'd been absent lately and that she was pulling back from it. She wanted us. She named specific things, game nights, the easy rituals we used to share. I told her we could do that. I said it and held her eyes my pareja, she'd believe it. I also said we'd keep our separate schedules because balance is healthy for both people. She squeezed my hand across the table and thanked me for my patience. After I cleared the dishes, I sent 2 emails I drafted earlier that week. The first went to my financial planner, move the direct deposit to the individual account, keep the shared bills covered, freeze discretionary spending on the joint card. The second went to my project manager, adjusting travel dates, confirm the Thursday overnight next week. This wasn't punishment, it was geometry. Separating what was mine from what was shared me pareja, that when the time came, nothing would be tangled. I also moved a duffel bag into the spare closet. Not because I planned to leave that night, because when a structure is compromised, a builder stages the exit before he needs it. The following week, Claire kept her word for exactly 3 days. She was home for dinner. She laughed at something I said. She left her phone face up twice. Then Thursday she went to a yoga class and came back flushed and chatty about a new instructor. 10 minutes after she got home, her phone buzzed and she stepped into the bathroom to take it. I finished paying the gas bill and sent Melissa a 2-word message. Still active, she replied, copy. That night I slept in the guest room, not a punishment, a line. When Claire found the made-up bed Friday morning, she stood in the doorway and demanded to know what this was. I told her the early gym alarm made it practical and that I wasn't in a position to be company right now. We'd reassess. She told me I was punishing her. I said it was a boundary. She said she hated that word. I said I knew. She crossed the room, put her hands on my shoulders, kissed my cheek, and asked me not to be like this. I told her we were already like this. How we treated each other inside of it was the only thing left to decide. When she left for her evening walk that Friday, I didn't track her. I sat at the kitchen table and filled out the first pages of a packet that would end my marriage. Then I texted Melissa. Papers started. She replied, same. Breathe. I did. The moment that settled everything came on a Saturday afternoon. I was at a hardware store picking up finishing nails when my phone rang. Claire. She said she was with the girls downtown, and traffic was bad. She'd be an hour, maybe 2. I opened the car app while she was still talking. Our sedan wasn't downtown. It was sitting still at a highway motel 2 exits south, the kind of place with a faded sign and a diner bolted to the side like an afterthought. I didn't feel anger. Anger is noise. What I felt was the quiet that comes after a decision has already been made and all that remains is the action. I paid for the nails in cash, walked to my truck, and called Melissa. She picked up on the first ring. It's time, I said. I sent her a screenshot. She didn't ask twice. She said she was 5 minutes from me. I swung by her place. She was already outside. Cap, hoodie, bag on her shoulder. She got in and didn't speak until we were on the ramp. You good? She asked. Solid, I told her. We parked near the diner. 3 men nearby were arguing about a game. We walked across the lot like people with a purpose. I pulled up the message thread and typed, "Don't worry, I'll send your location to his wife. Traffic should clear right up after that." I attached the live map with the motel pin. 15 seconds went by. Then, "Don't, please don't." 10 more seconds. "I'm begging you, Daniel." I didn't reply. I stood in the sun with Melissa and waited. The glass doors opened. Claire and Kevin came out in that half-jog people use when they're trying to project calm they don't feel. They both stopped hard when they saw Melissa standing next to me. The diner guys went quiet. A couple with a stroller slowed to watch. It wasn't a crowd, but it was enough. Claire spoke first. "This isn't what it looks like." Melissa's voice came out flat and surgical. "It's exactly what it looks like. It's exactly what we've been documenting for weeks while you both treated us like background noise." Kevin tried a laugh. He called her Ness and started a sentence. She raised one palm and he stopped. "You used my name as your alibi," she told him. "You walked my friend's husband's wife around like she was yours, and you spent money I earned on coffee afterward. You're done." Kevin's mouth opened, closed. Brooke turned to me. I said, "Save it. Not cold, not hot, just finished." Melissa wasn't done. She stepped forward and delivered it without raising her voice. "Not brave," she said. "Not complicated. Just careless and selfish. You wrote both your names on the same lie and assumed nobody would read it carefully enough. We read it." Claire's eyes went bright with something that wanted to look like emotion. "Melissa, please," she said softly. "Don't do this here." "You did this here," Melissa said. "Highway motel at 2 in the afternoon while texting us about traffic." A man near the diner door said something under his breath. Someone else shook their head. I took 2 envelopes from my jacket, prepared the night before, hoping for a different venue but ready for this one. I handed one to Kevin, one to Claire. "Those are the papers," I said. "Fair terms. Everything that needs to be addressed is addressed. I'm not here to negotiate or listen to explanations. I'm here to close this." Claire stared at the envelope like it might change if she looked at it long enough. "Wait," she said quickly, and the softness rushed back into her voice. "Come home. We can talk. We can fix this. I don't want to lose us. You stopped having us months ago," I told her. Melissa tapped the envelope against her palm and looked at Kevin. "You'll have your things out tonight. There'll be a new lock by Monday. You'll have reasonable time with the kids if you conduct yourself accordingly. That is the only negotiation available to you." He didn't argue. Claire tried one last move. "Daniel, I love you. I made a mistake. I can be different." "You already are different," I said. "Just not in a direction I can follow." We turned and walked. The men by the diner stepped aside. One of them, older, gray-haired, the kind of face that's seen some actual work, gave me a nod. Not approval exactly, something more like recognition. That counted. In the truck, Melissa exhaled like she'd been underwater. "Where do you want to go?" I asked. "Somewhere with food and no history," she said. We drove across town to a place neither of us had been before and sat in a corner booth. We didn't perform anything. We ate burgers. We clinked water glasses. She asked if I was okay. "No," she said when I asked her the same thing. Then she smiled the way people smile when they're being honest. "But I will be." "Same," I told her. "We're a mess," she said. "Organized," I corrected. "Big difference." She laughed, a real one, the kind that sounds like relief. She thanked me for the way I'd handled it. I told her noise is for people who still believe volume changes outcomes. We split a slice of pie because it felt like the right thing to do at the end of something. Then we mapped out the next few days, who to tell, what to leave alone. We kept it practical. When I dropped her off, she put a hand on my arm. "You don't have to check in on me later," she said. "But you can." "I will," I said. She added, "We handled this like teammates today." "We did," I said. "That matters. It does." I went home, slept in the guest room by choice. In the morning, Claire opened with the kitchen table gambit. "We can make this work if you just..." I cut her off before the sentence finished, politely. I told her I wasn't available to discuss the past, only logistics. She tried tears. She tried blame. She tried telling me I'd gone cold first, which was a creative interpretation of events. I didn't argue with any of it. I put dates on the calendar. I went to the hardware store and bought boxes. I organized the closet mi pareja. Her packing would be straightforward. I called my advisor and completed the rest of the financial moves. I told 2 mutual friends the same sentence. "We're separating." I found out she was meeting someone. "I'm not looking for input." They pushed. I didn't open any doors for them. At work, my superintendent, Ray, stopped by during lunch and told me I looked like something had chewed me up and reconsidered. "Paperwork," I told him. He asked if I was all right. "Clean," I said. And I meant it. Hurt isn't dirty. Deception is. That evening, Claire ran the ideal wife routine at full volume. A roast, candles, music she knew hit me. She kissed my neck while I stood at the sink and whispered that we could start fresh. She'd show me. "You already did," I told her quietly, and turned off the water. In the living room, she made every offer available to her. Counseling, passwords, no more nights out, deleted contacts, whatever I needed. I said I didn't want a prisoner. I wanted a partner, and a partner doesn't require a parole officer. "En mi pareja, that's it," she said. "That's it." She stared for a long moment, calculating. Then she went cold. "You'll regret this." I told her what I regretted was staying quiet as long as I had. The rest was just cleanup. She slept on the couch. I slept better than I had in weeks. The days after that were operational, not emotional. I moved my tools to the shop. I set up a proper desk in the spare room with a lock. I came home when I said I would and answered only the texts that mattered. When Claire called at noon to ask about a chat, I responded with my available windows for practical conversations only. She didn't like it. She understood it. Melissa coordinated her side with similar precision. She got a babysitter for an afternoon and had Kevin collect his things under her neighbor's supervision. He tried his usual jokes on his way out. Melissa didn't react. Her neighbor, an older woman named Bev who treats gardening like a competitive sport, stood at the end of the driveway with a rake and an expression that could have stopped traffic. Watching that from a distance, I felt something I didn't have a word for. The steadiness of someone else holding a line without being asked. And here's a quick reminder. Check the description and the pinned comment for everything we offer in terms of wellness and self-improvement. Fitness, health, mindset, it's all there and it genuinely helps. On Thursday, Claire texted, "Dinner tonight, just us?" I replied, "Not tonight." She pushed back. I said, "Logistics only." She went quiet for a day, then tried something else entirely, a flood of photographs. Us at the beach, the old house, the dog we had before. I didn't respond. She sent an audio message. I didn't play it. And then, as though a switch had been thrown, she shifted into practical mode. She'd be staying with a friend for a while. She'd send me the drop-off address for her last boxes. I wrote back, received. That was the last exchange we had that felt like it came from two people who'd once shared something. Saturday morning, she left with a suitcase and a few boxes. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't make a sound about it at all. She just walked out the way someone leaves a hotel room they're done with. I made coffee, went out to the back patio, and called Melissa. "How are you holding up?" I asked. "I've had better stretches," she said, "but I'll be fine." "Dinner tonight?" "Not a date," I added quickly, because naming things right matters. Emil, mi pareja, were not sitting alone staring at walls. "Fine," she said. And then, maybe not a date is exactly what we need right now. And if it turns into something else later, we'll know. Fair. We met at a small place near the lake. We talked about everything except our former lives, work, her kids' soccer schedules, a neighbor's border dispute. We laughed at old stories and then caught ourselves laughing, which made us laugh harder. At one point, she reached across the table and touched my wrist without thinking, and neither of us pulled back. It was simple. It was human. Walking her to her car, she stopped and looked at me like she was recalculating something. "You're not someone who needs the chaos to feel real," she said. "No," I told her. "I like a clean plan and a decent night's sleep." "Me too," she said. "Let's build from that." "Slow," I added. "Slow," she agreed. Weeks became a different shape of normal. The papers moved through their stages without complication. Friends called. The curious ones, the supportive ones, the ones who just wanted a good story. My answer to all of them was the same. "We're done. I'm fine." The ones who pushed didn't get more. The ones who respected it stayed in my life. Claire sent 3 more probes over the following weeks. A midnight text. A photograph from somewhere we used to go together. A holiday invitation sent early enough to feel strategic. I responded to none of them that weren't logistical. She caught on. Kevin moved into an apartment near the frontage road. I knew this only because his truck was no longer in Melissa's driveway, and that was all I needed to know. The people who used to orbit him at parties quietly recalibrated. That's how respect works. You don't get to rent it from people you've already burned. Melissa and I took our time. We didn't make anything public. We had dinners where the conversation stopped being about damage control and started being about something worth planning. We took her kids to a flea market one weekend and came home with a ceramic owl the youngest insisted would protect the kitchen. We let the ordinary do its work. One night, about a month after the motel, we sat on my back steps with mugs of tea, not wine. Nothing cinematic. She leaned into my shoulder and said she knew what she was grateful for. I asked what. "You came to me with facts," she said. "You didn't try to protect me from the information. You gave me the choice. That's respect." I told her she'd done the same thing. We met in the middle and moved forward together. We started planning modest things, a road trip in the fall, moving a desk mi pareja her kids could do homework at my place without being stacked on the floor, a Saturday basketball game where we'd be the boring adults with the snack bag. Nothing dramatic. Just the kind of slow construction that holds. Claire sent a final message one afternoon. "I'll be by next week for the last box. Leave it on the porch." "Will do," I wrote. I did. I included a note with 2 lines. "Take care of yourself. The key will stop working after Friday." No ultimatum in it. Just information and a closed door. The locksmith finished on Friday afternoon and handed me the new set. "That's a clean key," he said. "Thanks," I said, and stood there for a second with the warm metal in my palm. I thought about all the doors I'd walked through over the years, how many of them I'd left open behind me because closing them felt final. This one I closed. No drama, no last words shouted at a driveway, just the lock turning and the quiet after. People want the parking lot scene to be the satisfying part. It wasn't. It was the true part. The satisfying part came after. In every morning I kept my own word. In every conversation I didn't have. In every night I slept without a knot behind my sternum. Claire still lives in the same city. I hear things sometimes. She's renting somewhere that sounds like it has more echo than furniture. The orbit that used to surround her has contracted. That's not something I did. That's the math settling its own accounts. As for me, The house is mine. I upgraded the truck because it was time and I could. The business doubled its work this quarter. The guys on my crew say I look lighter. They're not wrong. Melissa leaves a sweater on the back of my chair because she runs cold in the evenings. She keeps a toothbrush at my place because it's practical. We're not in a hurry about any of it. We both know what we want. A home where no one flinches when a phone buzzes. Calm and real and something that was earned. People ask me sometimes how I knew when to stop trying. I tell them the truth. I knew the moment I realized that my apology hadn't changed the math. After that, it was just engineering. Measure twice, cut once, and build something worth living in. The last thing I ever said to Claire that mattered was in that motel parking lot. You already changed, I told her, just not toward me. Everything since has been a better chapter.